It's really something, isn't it? How fast technology moves. And you see the ripples hitting global markets almost constantly.
Oh, absolutely.
And right at the center of it all, well, it's semiconductors. These tiny chips are, the foundation for everything now.
It couldn't be more true.
So for this deep dive, we're really digging into a pretty major policy development happening right now in the U.S., all about these chips.
Exactly. We're looking at the Trump administration getting ready to, reverse the Biden administration's AI diffusion rule. It's specifically about U.S. chip exports.
Right.
And yeah, it's a development that's already making some waves. We've been going through the recent reports on this.
So the plan here is to really unpack this, understand what this policy change is, why it's happening, and I guess what it might mean down the line for tech.
That's the goal, to get to the core of the shift, the reasoning, and the potential consequences for the industry, and maybe even more broadly.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. This AI diffusion rule, what was it actually meant to achieve?
Right, so this rule popped up near the end of the Biden administration, and essentially it was about controlling where the most advanced AI chips could go.
The really powerful ones, like from Nvidia AMD.
Exactly, those high-performance processors from Nvidia AMD, Intel, the cutting-edge stuff. The rule set up this three-tiered system of restrictions.
3 tiers, how did that work?
Well, depending on the destination country and sort of the perceived risk associated with that country, different levels of these advanced chips would need an export license. Some might be easier to get than others, some may be impossible.
Got it. A way to control who gets the best tech. And this was about to happen.
Yeah, the whole system was slated to go live May 15th, just days away, really.
Wow. Okay. And now the Trump administration is basically hitting undo on that. What's the latest there?
That's right. Reports are confirming they're actively working to rescind this rule, completely pull it back.
And this is official?
Seems so. A spokesperson from the Department of Commerce confirmed it. That was Wednesday, May 7th, 2025.
So a pretty rapid change of direction for a policy that was, like you said, right about to launch.
A very quick about face, yeah.
Interesting. So what about the companies, the chip makers themselves? Nvidia, AMD, I imagine they've got thoughts on this.
Oh, they definitely do. And their reaction is pretty telling. The big players like Nvidia and AMD, they were actually, on record opposing these tiered restrictions from the start.
They didn't like the complexity.
That seems to be part of it. Nvidia, especially, has reacted very positively to this news of the reversal.
Really? What do they say?
Well, their spokesperson put out a statement, called it a once-in-a-generation opportunity for the U.S. to lead the next industrial revolution.
Strong words.
Yeah, lead the revolution, create jobs, build infrastructure, and they specifically mentioned this helped the trade deficit.
And the market noticed, I bet.
Immediately. Nvidia's stock climbed pretty noticeably on the news. So yeah, investors are definitely seeing this as significant.
Okay, that's Nvidia. Very enthusiastic. What about AMD? Where do they stand?
Well, AMD's CEO, Lisa Su, she's spoken about this issue before. She's argued for finding a balance.
A balance between what?
Between national security, which she acknowledged is important, and also, boosting the American chip industry. Her point was that they need access to global markets to really thrive.
So locking down exports too much could actually hurt the U.S. industry, in her view.
That seems to be the underlying concern, yeah. That overly strict rules could hinder their ability to compete, to innovate globally.
And didn't Nvidia's CEO, Jensen Huang, also say something specific about China? I remember reading something.
Yes, good point. He was quite direct about it. He mentioned recently that being locked out of the Chinese AI market specifically would be a tremendous loss.
Wow. Tremendous loss. It's blunt.
It really highlights the sheer economic scale they see in those international markets, particularly China for AI. And you might remember back in April, he was on Capitol Hill.
Right, lobbying.
Pretty much, arguing for AI policies that, foster technological advancement. The implications seemed clear. Less restriction is better for progress.
Okay, so it really sounds like the industry, or at least the big players, are largely welcoming this reversal. What's the administration's official reason for doing it? Why scrap the Biden rule?
Well, according to that Department of Commerce spokesperson, the view is that the Biden AI rule was, and I'm quoting loosely here, overly complex, overly bureaucratic.
Okay.
And would stymie American innovation. That's the critique.
Stymie innovation. So they think the rule itself was the problem.
That's the line, yes. And their stated goal now is to replace it with something else, a much simpler rule, they say.
Simpler?
Yeah, one that unleashes American innovation and ensures American AI dominance. So the focus is shifting towards enabling U.S. companies, it seems.
Oh. So if you boil it down, you've got this clear tension, right? National security worries versus the push for economic growth, for innovation leadership.
That's exactly it. That's the tightrope they're trying to walk.
So what are the key takeaways here? What are the sort of bigger picture implications we should be thinking about with this policy shift?
Well, that core conflict you just mentioned, security versus economics, that's takeaway number one. This decision really throws that balancing act into sharp relief.
And how does it affect the global picture?
It's likely to have a pretty significant impact on the global AI race. Who gets access to these super powerful computing tools? How fast can different countries or regions develop their own AI? This changes that calculation.
And for the U.S. companies?
It directly impacts their competitive standing internationally. More market access could mean more revenue, more R&D funding, potentially strengthening their position. But it also might mean more advanced tech ends up in more places.
Right. And this isn't just about profit margins, is it?
Yeah.
Changes like this, they must affect trade relationships, supply chains, the whole global setup.
Absolutely. We're talking about a critical foundational technology here. Any major shift in export policy for something like advanced semiconductors is bound to send ripples through international trade.
And for companies like Nvidia and AMD, you were saying it's not just about the sales numbers, Peter.
Exactly. For them, accessing global markets fuels the engine for future innovation. It helps attract talent, fund that incredibly expensive R&D. It's about staying ahead in the long run.
So cutting off that access, even partially,
could have knock-on effects, potentially unintended consequences across the whole tech ecosystem. It's all deeply interconnected.
Okay, so let's just recap quickly. We're seeing the Trump administration moving to scrap these Biden-era restrictions on exporting advanced AI chips.
Yep, that's the core move.
The stated reason is basically to simplify things, cut red tape, and boost American innovation. And the big chip companies seem largely on board with that, seeing big economic upsides.
That sums it up nicely. It really sets the stage for potentially a very different U.S. approach to how this critical AI technology flows globally.
It definitely does. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? With AI moving so incredibly fast, what is the best way to balance protecting national interests with, along the kind of global collaboration and trade that often drives tech progress?
That's the multi-billion-dollar question, isn't it?
And this much simpler rule they mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
What will that actually look like? How simple? And what will its real long-term effects be on who leads in AI? Definitely something to keep an eye on.